I would like to intro our partners here. We have Katie Chuba with the Hartland Area Chamber of Commerce and Pam McConaughey with the Greater Brighton Area Chamber of Commerce. If you guys want to just quickly introduce yourselves. Katie, you want to start?
Sure. Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. Thank you for joining us. Like Janelle says, it's being recorded so we can share out to our members, our colleagues, and our partners in Livingston County. So, I think too, as we're kind of restarting here and businesses are getting back to the grind, if you will, that's why we're recording these and sharing them. So, but thank you again for today for your partnership and our guests today for presenting. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
And hi, I'm Pam. I'm with the Greater Brighton Area Chamber, and I'd like to thank the Michigan Chamber and the U.S. Chamber for participating today. And we hope that you enjoy this. We'll be, like they said, recording it and getting it out to our members. And so we're looking forward to the information that they're going to share.
All right, thank you guys, and thank you for collaborating on this webinar. Thank you, Dan and Kevin, for joining us. And I would also like to extend a great thank you to Catherine Burkholder with Consumers Energy. And Catherine, I'm going to hand it over to you this time. She has sponsored our multi-chamber webinar today. This was initially planned back in May. We were hoping to have this event as an in-person event. So we're really happy to have consumers supporting this event and the information being presented here today. So Catherine, welcome and thank you.
Thank you so much. I just want to take a minute, first of all, to thank the Howell, Greater Brighton, and Hartland Chambers for hosting this important discussion. I'm looking forward to hearing information about what everyone else's perspective is of what's going on. But I did want to do just kind of a quick little plug for what our company is doing to help our customers. So I'm going to tell you about 3 things that maybe you can share with your business contacts as well as your residents, and something you benefit from as well. Number 1 is first until July 31st, you as a customer of Consumers Energy can get a free Google Nest thermostat. Absolutely free. This offers part of our clean energy plan, and it's going to help us eliminate coal and achieve a net zero carbon emissions. So please take advantage. Second, for our small customers, we're here to help you save money by offering virtual energy coaching. It is absolutely with one of our energy experts. They will share your energy use with you. They will suggest programs and rebates that can help your business save energy and money, all done safely over the phone. And lastly, for our commercial and industrial customers, demand response program rewards your business by using smart energy. We say our large industrial for temporarily reducing energy use and lowering their demand on the grid. They get paid to participate even if no occurs. They earn bill credits for load reductions. They get 24/7 near real-time energy use monitoring and other benefits as well. So I just wanted to share that with you all today because I know that you are the people who get to speak with all of our, whether it's their business, large business residents. And so I hope they take advantage of some of the programs we offer. They can go to consumersenergy.com. They can contact the Howell Chamber and they will get you in touch with me. I love talking to people about all of these programs, so any way we can. And again, thank you for having me here today.
Thank you so much, Catherine, and thank you again to consumers for supporting programs such as this, and for all of the creative programs that you're always putting into place to help your customers and your community. We sincerely appreciate community partners like you. And I'm going to go ahead and, I don't know who wants to go first. We actually didn't discuss this. So Dan or Kevin, if either, we'll start with Dan, if that's okay. And Dan is the Director of Tax Policy and Regulatory Affairs at the Michigan Chamber of Commerce. He joined the Chamber back in 2017, and he has a great wide variety of expertise in regulatory issues and tax policy and regulatory affairs. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to you, Dan. Welcome. Thanks for being here today.
Yeah, thanks. It's always good to be here with you guys, the Hartland, Brighton, Howell Chambers. and the U.S. Chamber. It's you guys do a great job there in Livingston County, and it's always important to recognize the strength of the Chamber Federation. When you put together the local chambers with the state chamber and our partners in D.C., like Kevin at the U.S. Chamber, we can create a really strong force to advocate on behalf of all of our members and the business community in general. So thank you for all of your guys' partnerships, and Catherine, thanks for consumers and everything you guys do. But to jump into some statewide issues here, I'll probably start by saying, back in March, we really shifted gears away from our usual advocacy efforts within the legislature and focused on customer service. It was really back to basics for us, helping members understand the executive orders as they were coming out and as they just continually evolve, how businesses are supposed to treat compliance to these orders. So we focused a lot on helping members comply with the executive orders, navigate some of these federal issues, and relief programs through like PPP loans and PPP loan forgiveness and stimulus packages. So it was all hands on deck, from local chambers to the state chamber to U.S. chamber. Any resource we could pull from, we were trying to do that to help answer every question we could. I will say lately, though, the legislature has started to get more active. So it feels good to get back on the black and whites, we call them, outside the House and Senate over in the Capitol building to push through some legislative reforms that will benefit the business community. Most recently, we were looking for some cash flow relief. A lot of members have talked about liquidity and cash flow issues during COVID, and that's not surprising. They've been shut down for a long time, or they've had their capacities extremely limited. So cash flow issues and liquidity has been a major problem. I'm sure everybody on this call has heard that, and everybody that's watching has probably experienced it. So we were looking for some creative ways to alleviate those pressures. And one of them was trying to deal with the upcoming summer property tax bill. The summer property tax bill is a pretty significant expense, and sometimes it's the largest expense a business will have to face during the entire year. So right now, with a 30, 40, 50, even upwards of $1 million tax bill is going to be really hard for a lot of businesses to make. So we created a mechanism that would spread these payments out over 11 months to try to alleviate, again, this huge burden. Unfortunately, the governor vetoed that measure late last week. So we were really disappointed and frankly just extremely frustrated that she decided to deny Michigan businesses almost $1 billion worth of property tax relief. This wasn't forgiving property tax bills. This was just extending the payment schedule. It truly was a hand up, not a handout. So we were, very shocked and troubled to see that veto come through. The veto letter cited some baseless claims, actually, as to why she vetoed it. The best part of that plan are all of our local governments rely on property tax revenues to fund our police, fire, and all of our local services. And this plan would have actually helped. It wouldn't have pushed the cash flow issues of businesses off onto local governments. So it was a comprehensive, well thought out plan. And and in today's environment, that's what we need. We need bold action. When state government shuts a business down, it's kind of assumed that some financial relief will come through at the same time. So that's the property tax legislation was vetoed. And the other cash flow mechanism which we pursued to help businesses was through their sales use and withholding taxes. Those are monthly remittances, and sometimes that cash could be used for other purposes, reopening, hiring people, investing in PPE. And so we had pursued an option to push those sales use withholding tax payments out a while to, again, alleviate cash flow, and the governor vetoed that measure as well. So we're looking for ways to alleviate these problems any way we can. I just wish we had a little bit more cooperation with the executive office in doing so. One area that I wanted to raise on this call, and I know the local chambers on the call have already done this, is tomorrow the application will be available for a grant that can be upwards up to $20,000 to help Michigan businesses restart and reopen. So the legislature appropriated $100 million, and that money will be spread out through 15 regions, and businesses can apply for that relief up to $20,000. So, I mean, that's about as good of a financial relief as we can get, it seems like these days. We're going to continue to pursue the property tax issue. The legislature comes back next week, and I think we might put some bills on her desk again. We'll resolve the baseless issue she raised and really try to resolve this property tax issue, because it's a big one. I mean, I've talked to businesses that, you could have 3 locations as a franchisee, and you're paying $75,000 in property taxes. And right now, I mean, it's going to be really hard to make that payment. A movie theater I talked to, 3rd generation family owned movie theater, been first to close, probably will be the last to reopen, and they're looking at a $300,000 property tax bill. So they can't make that. And what's going to happen is they're not going to pay it, and they're going to be in a very difficult spot. And it also affects our local governments too, because if that property tax payment doesn't come in, they don't have the money to pay for the services that they provide. So it's just a big mess. I wish I had some better news on that front. Another issue we're going to be looking at is liability protection. So we need to strengthen our laws to make sure our job providers aren't facing frivolous lawsuits as they do reopen. Right now, there's kind of a presumption that if an employee or a customer gets the COVID-19 virus, it's presumed they have gotten it from your business. So that's going to open up a big can of worms when it comes to liability. We need to make sure that, baseless claims aren't clogging our court systems and forcing our businesses to spend, thousands of dollars on legal bills. So if there's a true claim, it should stand, but we're afraid that trial attorneys everywhere will start filing frivolous lawsuits, clogging the courts and causing undue burden to businesses when they're quite vulnerable at this stage. We're focusing on the budget. So the legislature comes back next week, like I said, and they're going to be focusing on this year's current budget. Because of the shutdowns, our economy is taking a huge hit, which results in depressed tax revenues. So the current year's budget is facing a $3 billion shortfall. And for a state that has a $10 billion general fund, that's going to be hard to plug. So we're expecting a lot of cuts. And we're also hoping that we're not going to be facing any tax increases, because we all know that with the current environment, businesses aren't going to be able to look at a tax increase of any kind very favorably. So the legislature is working hard on solving our budget issues. We have a balanced budget amendment. So unlike the federal government, we can't just create new money. We have to live within our means here. So that's going to be a big problem. Next fiscal year's budget is also about due. So we need to resolve this current fiscal year. And we've already missed the deadline for next fiscal year, next fiscal year's budget. So altogether, the legislature needs to come up with about $6 billion. And that's going to be very difficult to do. So there's a lot going on here in Lansing. Like I said, our focus has been reprioritizing the legislative branch down the street here. I guess I point, like you guys can all see, I'm pointing at the Capitol building. Like you can't see that, but that's what I'm pointing at. So our focus is over there again, as well as still trying to help members. The latest executive order regarding masks has been a little bit ill-received. Some members think that it's a good thing that they can now point to the $500 fine as a reason to make their customers wear masks, while others are really worried about trying to enforce this mask requirement when they're not the police, they're not, the security guards, they're, a retiree that's greeting people at Meijer when they come in the doors. It's created a pretty sticky situation, and we've already heard of a lot of problems. Unfortunately, people are sensitive these days, and for some reason the mask itself is a symbol of frustration and angst and a lot of worry. So it's very turbulent times, unprecedented times, and those are some high level updates on some issues that I had written down yesterday that I wanted to share that are pertinent and immediate. So with that, Janelle, I don't know if you want to maybe open it up to questions between the five of you, or maybe we go to Kevin, and Kevin and I can maybe dialogue back and forth a bit about some things.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Dan. Great update. Wishing that there was more positive news, but we understand that's out of our control. I can open it up for questions now. So if anybody has a question, they can go ahead and type that into the Q&A box here. I did have a question on the grant program, the Michigan Restart Grant Program. I had heard that the businesses in the first round that did receive a grant are not eligible to reapply for this program when the limit is a lot higher. I think the first time around was like 2,500? I don't know, I could be wrong. But so is there any way, is there anybody talking about that to where some of these businesses might be able to reapply? What can maybe we do from a local level to assist there?
Yeah, that's a good question. So a couple things. So yes, if you did apply and you received the first round of grant funding, you're not eligible for the second round. And while the max amount of the grant is higher, it's not expected that the actual dollars that will flow through to the business will be much different. So there's that. Unfortunately, there is not. I haven't really heard much talk about altering that program to, make the difference eligible to applicants or something like that. I haven't heard that, unfortunately, and I expect this program to go quick too. The initial $5 million went very quick, so I expect this $100 million to go just as quick, especially now that more people know about it. So I don't think there'll be time to adjust it even after the program started. But another thing I wanted to raise, because I got this question a lot, is if you received a PPP loan, does that make you ineligible for this grant program? And the answer is no. It was the only eligibility requirement was that you did not get the first MEDC grant. Any other financial relief or support that you've received is separate. You can still apply for the grant.
That's good to know. Thank you so much.
And that's kind of part of the problem. Like a lot of these, when we look at tax relief or liquidity and cash flow issues, we try to look at a policy solution that would encompass everybody that needs it. And the property tax is a prime example of that. With these MEDC grants, they're great, but again, it's limited in number. It's based on a small group of people that nobody knows deciding who gets and who doesn't. It's a lot more. I don't know. I don't want to say arbitrary, but it's less transparent, I think is a good word. And we've always tried to get the administration and the governor's office to look at broader base relief for everybody, as opposed to the select few who happen to get their application on time, or that might know someone at their local EDO that bumps up the application. I mean, it's just, I'm not saying these things happen at all, but we don't know if they don't. So we've really tried to prioritize the financial relief in a more transparent manner.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Dan. Did anybody else have any questions? Pam or Katie, did you have any questions on the update? Nope. All right. Well, thank you so much for the update from the state. And I'm going to go ahead and introduce Kevin. Kevin Courtois. I knew I was going to murder that. Courtois.
Perfect.
Perfect. All right.
He's on here with you today.
He's the Executive Director of the Congressional Public Affairs at the U.S. Chamber's Great Lakes Regional Office. To achieve the U.S. Chamber's public policy goals, Kevin cultivates and maintains legislative, political, media, and grassroots resources throughout Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, Michigan, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. Welcome so much, Kevin, and we look forward to hearing what's going on at a federal level.
Well, thanks, Janelle, and thanks to the Howell, Hartland, and Brighton Chambers for your partnership and for hosting this. You just listed off a number of states It's a lot of ground to cover, but I'm still here in Chicago now for the last few months. I'm really looking forward to getting back on the road and back to back to Michigan and back to all the states, to be quite honest. Thank you to Catherine and consumers for your support as well. These are my favorite type of events where typically we get together in person, but even virtually, where we have participation from our local, state, and then federal chambers. And I echo Dan's sentiment on the importance of a strong federation partnership. Now, for those of you who don't know, the U.S. Chamber deals almost exclusively with federal policy. So I'm going to give a bit of an update from what's going on in D.C. And a little bit of what we've seen in the recent past, and then what we can look ahead to. So kind of diving right in, Dan talked a little bit about the Paycheck Protection Program, the PPP, which was created in the CARES Act, or the Phase 3 legislation in response to the pandemic. The House and Senate, they passed a bill in early June, which was the Paycheck Protection Flexibility Act, and this was signed into law so early June, and it extends out from that 8-week period where businesses had to spend that amount that they received. It extends that from 8 weeks to 24 weeks. It also extended out the safe harbor for loans with less than $2 million to June 30th. And then an important part, it modified that 75-25% rule that says you have to spend 75% of the funds on payroll. It modified that to make it a 60-40 rule. So only 40% of the funds would have to be spent on payroll. You may have also seen before Congress left town for the current in-district work period, they extended the application deadline for Paycheck Protection Program to August 8th. So if there are businesses listening to this now who do need assistance and have not yet applied for that program and are eligible, you have until August 8th to apply. Now, I mentioned that Congress is in an in-district work period where I have a bit of a breather here, but what we're looking at is a very busy 2 to 3 weeks when Congress returns. So they'll be back in on July 20th, so next week. The House is scheduled to adjourn July 31st, which leaves only 10 legislative days. The Senate scheduled to adjourn August 7th. Of course, they could potentially extend that, but there's a lot to get done in these next few periods, and we're going to talk a little bit about what they're looking at in a Phase 4 package. Now, quickly on the PPP as well, for that, the Flexibility Act, it really just focused on the flexibility. It didn't expand the program. So for the chambers on the line, I know a big issue for our federation across the country is whether or not C6 organizations will be eligible for the Paycheck Protection Program and the funds that remain. It was not included in the Flexibility Act, but as you may recall in the House passed bill, so their Phase 4 version, the HEROES Act, it did expand eligibility. It picked up all 501c organizations, included C6 as well as some community hospitals, newspapers, radio stations, TV stations. All of those were included in that package. So I think there is still that possibility of getting this included. We have to look to what the Senate does and where negotiations go. So also with respect to the Phase 4 package, so the House did not include in the HEROES Act any liability protections. And Leader McConnell has signaled that he's going to be focused here when they return on 4 parts. So liability protections, kids, jobs, and healthcare. And I think filling in those blanks different ways can be interpreted very differently. It leaves a wide range. But on the liability protection, they've been very clear. And this is a priority for us, the U.S. Chamber, and for the business community across the country. We've asked particularly for 4 safe harbors as part of our liability package. One deals with securities litigation. So it's pretty specific to public companies and threats of lawsuits regarding securities disclosure. The second is with respect to makers and distributors and utilizers of PPE. So not just the N95 mask, but this is meant to cover, the distilleries that converted their operation and were making hand sanitizers. So that businesses, that have stepped up to provide or donate, that they're not held liable for the equipment. So the third piece on the liability protection reform deals with healthcare providers, so both individual physicians and nurses, but also healthcare entities, so they're not subject to frivolous litigation. And then perhaps the most important is what we call exposure claims. So this would be a situation where a customer, an employee, or a contractor, claims that they've contracted COVID at your place of business or an event you're hosting, so that that's saying that you should have taken additional precautions. So basically this Safe Harbor Act, operates on the basis of saying that yes, an entity is following the applicable federal or state guidelines, and that they acted in good faith, and they have a safe harbor against liability. So liability protection is one piece of this. I know that we're also looking at schools and universities. So as you kind of get closer to fall and this return to school, and it's really becoming a big part of the conversation, liability protections for schools and universities will be an important piece of this. So we initially thought that this all would get done by the end of, we were saying by the July 4th recess. Obviously that didn't happen. Now we're looking ahead to end of July. I told you the dates, that some of the deadlines that we're dealing with. One part of the phase 4 package, there's some big ticket items that still need to be resolved. And this is why I think it's going to be a very hectic couple of weeks. One of them is the $600 add-on payment. So this is the unemployment insurance. The federal government has $600 in addition to what the state was already providing. That expires at the end of the month. That's one deadline we're seeing. It could be that they pass a short-term extension while they still negotiate the phase 4 package. This is a big one for our members, and you may have seen a lot of stories on this as well. But this add-on payment and unemployment has made it difficult for businesses to get their employees back to work. So, of course, Congress had to act quickly when they passed the CARES Act, provide assistance to those who needed it. They didn't have time to work through all the details of how to figure out making sure that employees weren't making more on unemployment than they were. So they did this flat add-on bonus. So we know, politically and also practically, we're looking at kind of changing that bonus. So I know that I don't think it'll be a straight $600 add-on anymore, but that Congress is looking at ways to tweak that formula, have a little bit more time to work with states and seeing their capabilities and determining what type of assistance can the government provide, where they're not also providing a disincentive to work, to allow businesses to get their employees back to work. Another big issue that they're going to have to talk about, and something that we support is, and Dan touched on this too, is support for state and local governments. So as we see a lot of states operating under these balanced budget requirements, a lot of localities, and this is where a lot of school funding comes in as well. They're in need as they see revenue shortfalls. So there was state and local relief included in the HEROES Act. And I think it's something that the Senate Republicans are looking at as well in their bill and in what they will ultimately pass. Another big issue I kind of touched on is childcare. So as we look to getting back to work, I know a lot of families are wrestling with this. How does someone who needs to go back to work, wants to go back to work, they have a family at home, what are they going to do if schools aren't reopening and childcare facilities aren't reopening? So I know that Leader McConnell in the Senate has said this is one of his priorities, right? So kids and jobs, they kind of tie together here in terms of making it a system where, and they're going to look for ways to ensure that schools and childcare providers can reopen and operate in a safe way. Another thing I want to touch on, so this is outside of the phase 4 package, but is just to highlight, certainly with recent events, we announced our Equality of Opportunity initiative. We kicked it off with a town hall. And what we did here, we were talking about looking at the economy and looking at society and looking at the equality of opportunity. So people of all races and backgrounds can participate in the American economy and thrive and grow. So I just want to highlight, we did last week announce our Equality of Opportunity agenda. We wanted it to have specific action items, not just, the talking points, but we did release that agenda. Won't go into it in too much detail. It is available on our website, but wanted to make sure we highlighted that as well. Some other things, as we had this short break legislatively, we've seen some action on immigration in the courts and from the administration, something that we're very much focused on when we look at, I know important in Michigan, especially in northern Michigan, when we look at working visas and some of the action that the administration has taken there. We're going to be pushing back on some of the restrictions on legal immigration that were recently announced. Whether it's through the administration or through the courts, something that we will be very much focused on. So I'm going to stop there and open it up to questions. And on the PPP side too, I think we could do a whole webinar on PPP forgiveness, and I'd welcome that opportunity too. I know our team has done quite a few. We typically do get a lot of questions on that, but happy to answer anything on that topic. We could do a separate webinar and anything else that might be on your mind.
Thank you so much, Kevin. We do have a PPP forgiveness webinar coming up tomorrow.
Oh, perfect.
We're working with our local EDO and one of our local lenders for that.
Oh, well. Excellent.
Yeah, so thank you so much on that. And so Angela, because I see she typed in the chat here, I don't know if you were able to see that, Kevin, because there's a lot of information to digest. But Angela, I would suggest making sure that you register for that webinar. That is tomorrow morning. I believe it starts at 9 a.m. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. It's another joint chamber effort. But yes, her question, we received the PPP funds in April, so I understand that we can extend the utilization of these funds beyond the 8 weeks, and I believe that is correct, that they can extend those. And then, and if so, is there something that I need to do to extend it? Is there anything that she needs to do on her end?
No, so good question. The answer to your first question is yes, that'll be extended beyond 8 weeks. So you're going to look at the loan origination date, the date that you received those funds, and before you had for loan forgiveness, they'd look at how you spent those funds in that 8-week period. You just push that back to 24 weeks, and there's no initial action you have to take. This will be taken care of when you submit that forgiveness application. I should add on to that we've been advocating for some other ways to streamline the process for some of those smaller loans, automatic forgiveness, for loans under, let's say, $150,000. So something to keep an eye on, but no action that you need to take right now. I see there's a second question, and that is for those who are maybe listening to the recording, is there a second round of PPP that we could apply for? Not at the moment. So if you've received a PPP loan, there's nothing else in terms of the Paycheck Protection Program that's available. But Congress, one thing that's being talked about in this Phase 4 legislation is additional assistance for businesses. So this could be an expansion or modification of the existing PPP program. Maybe it's something that looks a little bit different, but they're talking about targeting, those really small businesses and businesses that are in industries that were especially hard hit, like in hospitality. So I don't know what that's going to look like, if it's going to be opening up those who've received PPP, allowing them to apply for a second loan. But it is something in terms of additional assistance that the federal government and Congress that they are looking at. Any other questions?
I don't have any, but does anybody else have any other questions? All right. So I think that is everything then. I had a feeling I anticipated we would be done definitely before 12:30. So this is great. I'm sure everybody likes ending early. But thank you so much, Kevin and Dan, for joining us today from the U.S. and Michigan Chambers. We really appreciate the update. Lots of good information here. As Kevin had mentioned, it's always great to collaborate on things like these and a really good sharing of information from the local, state, and then federal level. So thank you all. And thank you again to consumers and Catherine for your continued support for the Livingston County region. We sincerely appreciate it, and being able to do things like this because of wonderful community supporters like yourself. If you guys don't have anything else, we really just want to thank you again, and hopefully you can join us tomorrow for our webinar on the loan forgiveness. So what do you have to do to get the loan forgiven? All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Have a great week, and we hope to see you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.